Hi, my name is Angella Reynolds, and I would like to speak with you today about mandatory spay and neuter required in Franklin County, Kentucky, and frankly all of central Kentucky, and frankly even all of Kentucky, and later on hopefully all of the United States. But I'll be happy to start with Franklin County just to get started. Personally, I have spent over 20 years of my life dedicated to animal rescue, to spay and neuter programs, to TNR, which is to trap, neuter, alter, or release. And I have worked with various spay and neuter groups and nonprofit organizations such as Lifehouse, the Franklin County Humane Society, Woodford County Humane Society, Olam County, um, as well as Holly's Place, the Nine Life Cat Pack, Woodstock Spay and Neuter Clinic, um, and a lot more I can't remember over a long period of time. That's what happens when you get old. I have been privy to the inner workings of what goes on behind the scenes, or behind the fences, I like to say, of the Humane Societies and the shelters, and also the spay and neuter clinics. And before we get into all the heavy stuff, I would like to show you my first slide as far as why we're all here today. The oohs and ahs, let them begin, and frankly, if one of you doesn't at least ooh and ah a little bit, then shame on you, and frankly, I don't really know why you're here. Uh, I'm just kidding. It's it's a very serious situation, and I'm not trying to make light of it. It's something that needs to be talked about, and talked about quite often. The problem is a lot of people don't. So that's what we're going to do today. But as you can see, that it's worth talking about. It's worth fighting for. Now, yeah, I know they're cute. After looking at all the sweet babies, let's talk about what unfortunately can happen to them. First, I want to set the record straight. There's a lot of misconception about euthanasia. Euthanasia, by definition alone, according to old wonderful Mr. Webster, is actually the act or the practice of killing or permitting the death of something uh, that is hopelessly ill or injured or sick in a relatively painless way, therefore delivering it with mercy or providing mercy or in a humane method. Unfortunately, it has taken on a new meaning and will forever be equated with shelters across the United States as a method to control animal population. And that was not its intention. However, that has become its methodology, and I fear that's what it will remain. Now, you can't become too angry with shelters. They are doing the best that they can. They're dealing with what they have to deal with. Now, some have taken it up the cause and have done other things when their boards have allowed them to do so, when funds and volunteers have allowed them to do so. But smaller shelters have their hands tied when they don't have the support, when they don't have the funding, when they don't have the support of their board members, or they don't have it within their policies. That euthanasia, unfortunately, is the only option they have. Hopefully, within Franklin County, we're going to try to find something that gives another option to them if we're allowed to do so. Something that will become law if county, hopefully later city, and hopefully adopted by the state. Pikeville is practicing mandatory spay and neuter. We are the state capital, and we need to set an example. I think a lot of the misconception with spay and neuter is the number of animals that we have to deal with. And in my second slide, you will see that these numbers are staggering. They're huge. There's, well, let's talk about them for a minute. Yes, I know we have to get the cuteness. It's addictive. Um, but still, again, we're dealing with some very, very serious things. But the cuteness sucks you in. We've got 4 to 6 million animals, as reported, estimated by the American Humane Society, as being euthanized yearly. We have a number of litters that a female cat can produce up to, but I really like this, a number of litters a female cat can produce is up to 3 per year. Um, In all honesty, cats can actually produce more than five. I have had that happen numerous occasions, and there has been a lot of external factors that have contributed, such as global warming. I don't know if people have taken that into consideration, but due to climate changes, there has also been effects on the animal population, as well as the insects who are witness. It's logical. Um, as you can read for yourself, the effects that it has on dogs and cats both. Now, it's been my experience that if you take both a cat and a dog and they have a litter, say each of six, at least 3 to 4 of those will be female. And then you start the effect again. It becomes like the book of Exodus. They begot and they begot and they begot and they begot. It does not stop. And euthanasia just kills. There's nothing, frankly, it's just death. That's it. Now, granted, it's a quote quote. This is my quote quote hands, a humane death, um, but it's still death. So let's dive dive a little bit more into that deep water, shall we? Now, my next set of pictures are not so cute. I will warn you beforehand. I don't make any apologies for them because they're the truth, and so I do warn you though. And they are not suitable for young or small children. So I just want that to be said. Um, this is an actual day at camp. This is what people do not want you to see behind the fence. Now, what I showed you in my last slide, or the slide before last, I apologize, was that the American Humane Society does a lot of estimations. And the more digging and the more research that I've done over the years, I've realized why that is. Back way back, almost 12 years ago, in 2000 and 2001, they actually reported numbers closer to the truth of what a nationwide average was close to being. At the time, it was 2000 in 2000, and then later in 2001, they reported a double of euthanasia, which was 4,000. And there was an outrage from other animal groups and activists because of the practice of euthanasia, period. So they decided that that wasn't their job, was not to police. However, they are one of the largest organizations in the United States that people do turn to when it does indeed involve shelters and humane societies and their policies and their rules and regulations, which heavily do rely on euthanasia. So this, we actually did have a landfill here in Franklin County that primarily consisted of euthanized animals. It looked much like the in the center picture photograph. I've actually been there. Um, these that you see, I did not take. They are for educational purposes only, but I have seen these images. I've lived these images and have seen them more times than I would like to recount. They're shocking at first, and I hate to say it, but I've seen them so many times in real life, and it still shocks me. It still affects me. It bothers me deeply. Uh, moving on in my next slide, the estimations that I talked to you about earlier about the American Humane Society. A lot of the reason why they decided to coast on, as I call it, they decided to set on a set number of estimating between 4 to 6 million, and this has been their set response for the past 10 years, ever since 2001 up till 2012. Now, if you take the very statistics that, in fact, that information from the slide that pertained to the birthing rate of cats and dogs, and put it in and use it actually with the information that they provided in 2001 and 2000 and 2001, and use that as a plateau to build off of, they contradict themselves by the very information that they provide to the public on a daily basis. And it, as you can see, exceeds by their numbers over a 12-year period at just an estimation that they reportedly would estimate, or estimate reportedly, or however that works, which I can't see that it would. But however, they would have claimed that estimation would say, go figure, that they would have euthanized reportedly, over 46 million animals, where my math, building on a plateau of a continuing growth of doubling the numbers, as it would appear from 2000 to 2001, plus considering in the factors of what I know from personal experience, of how many females usually in a litter, to the birthing rate of, and I'm using their numbers, not 5 times a year versus what they reported as 3, but taking into consideration that, using theirs, um, I'm appalled to say that we have close to almost 383 million animals being euthanized. My screen's not big enough to even, my slide's not even big enough. I don't have the words. Moving on, I guess the best thing to say is, other than death, some other reason why it's really great to implement a mandatory spay and neuter, and just reasons why it's good to have your animals spayed or neutered, period, is that other than death and the fact of overpopulation, which I believe we've covered, your female and male pet will live longer. Um, it also saves them from a lot of health issues. Um, in addition to that, your female, and anybody who's ever lived with a female cat that's come into heat knows that it alone is worth having your animal altered over. A male dog or cat uh, will not roam like they would. A female will leave a scent marking that a male dog or cat will follow anywhere between a 6 to 10 mile ratio, and sometimes even farther. This leads them up to get hit by cars, predators, fights. Numerous things can happen, including being picked up by a humane society or by a shelter, and the ratio for them being returned over or turned back over to their owners are that sliver, unless they're microchipped or properly tagged, is 4% for cats and 14% for dogs. So as you can see, it's very low, unless you have them microchipped or you have them properly tagged and the tag has not come off. But another thing is that they're not as destructive, especially males. They're not as aggressive. They're not as territorial. They're the neighborhood. Nobody wants to be the neighbor that everybody hates because your animal attacks everybody else's animal. Nobody wants to show up from with a camera crew from, Hellcat, my cat's from hell. Nobody wants to be that guy. So, or to have the dog whisperer show up on your doorstep. It's more cost effective too, because of the costs that you would accrue on down the road because of their health issues. Um, they also make better companions because their focus, as when they were younger, becomes more about you. It's no longer about their sex drive, so they refocus. Um, in addition, and also it is a great perk for the owner, is that you yourself have a longer, happier life. So how are we planning to do this if we're even to make a dent in such numbers? Well, one of the things that we do is that to make it mandatory is that we try to get it to become a law. And we need to have the support of the courts, and we need to have the support of the county, and we need to have the support of the local humane society, because those are going to be the ones, again, that are on taking the blunt of this. They're going to be doing less extra work. They're going to be the ones taking all the shots for it. But if it's worth it to them to do it, and I know that many are in support of it, because of their ultimate goal, we forget that they're animal lovers too. Their ultimate goal is they see all the suffering. They don't like it. They want it to end. They see it more so than we do. Who do you think loads those barrels? Who do you think has to take them out to the dump? Them. So we make it a law. We get it passed first. Then we look at it as how you would license your pet. And it's handled in much of the same manner. And they're already providing those services. They have a spay and neuter clinic going on at least once or twice a week. that their prices are comparable to those that I've already factored in and considered. I think that they charge $5 more than currently than what I have in my pricing chart for their altering, and exactly the same for cats, I believe. They don't host a clinic, but I think that'll bring in additional. Well, in all honesty, clinics are more for about community efforts than it is about profit. But all in all, usually those who do TNR rescue work pony up and bring in their own funding to pay for the vet. They bring in their own medication, their own drugs, and treat the animals. So it's usually a labor of love, literally. In addition, it's going to be a little bit more stringent on breeders. They're the ones who are also going to be probably the most upset with the new law. But the thing is, it gives us the opportunity, especially animal control and FOP, local FOP, police officers, to go into their homes, to make sure that it is what it needs to be. Hopefully, this will shut down some puppy mills. This will be preventative maintenance, so to speak. Like I said, it carries the heftiest fines, and these licenses that they will pay will need to be maintained on a yearly basis. So there's not that many breeders in Franklin County, but it will be a consistent revenue for the shelter. So that in and of itself would be something that would be nice. Then we also have, and it would be treated, like I said, just as someone who was purchasing their dog tags. Then we have those who are the offenders if they do not have their animal altered. The first time they'll get a warning. After that, and they'll be provided, if they claim they have their dog altered, they will be given 30 days to provide from their vet proof of that altering. If their vet is out of town, they surely can fax them a copy of their file, fax of documentation, something of that knowledge. We'll provide a basic form that just needs to be signed from the vet, and we'll keep it on record. Um, things like that. We'll simplify it. We'll keep it as simple as possible, but yet we'll keep a record. That'll be the biggest thing, is documentation. In addition to that, if they continue not to have, we will check back up with them. If their animal is still unaltered, they will have 14 days to do so, and to license their animal, that will be thrown in there as well, and they will be fined then on their second offense. On their third offense, if we check back up with them, they have not altered their animal will be confiscated, and they will be hit with a much heftier fine and possible jail time. On breeders, their fines will be, like I said, they will go even heftier. We're talking anywhere $300 to $400 to $500 and possible jail time. Their animals confiscated for the worst offense, and depending on the severity, they can end up with animal cruelty charges. In addition to that, I've worked out a comparable 5-year plan. I use the comparison to nonviolent repeat crimes in Franklin County and surrounding counties, in addition to animal cruelty cases and repeat offenders and their numbers, and the costs that I've suggested, in addition to the math. So it usually takes around about $75,000 to $100,000 to run a small spay and neuter clinic, where here you already have the tools being implemented and already in place, including a part-time veterinarian. So you would probably just need to add on to that, which would be probably around $35,000 to $40,000 for the additional medication, the additional drugs, possibly staff. The rest you can work on volunteers who could handle post-op and pre-op. So somewhere in that vicinity. The first year you're looking at probably about $20,000, so it may cover close to half. The additional could be made up, hopefully, with fundraising. Later on, like I said, projected in 5 years, you're looking at anywhere grossing $225,000 plus. That does not count for the fines that will be paid consecutively throughout the years. So, I'm not the fines, I'm sorry, the licenses. And, so hopefully it'll be something that'll be monitored, kept up, and will eventually, in a short amount of time, be able to pay for itself. And that in itself is what we want to attain. So, in a nutshell, you're providing a service to the community, you're providing a service to the animals of the community, and it is paying for itself. And hopefully, in the long run, it's actually making the community money. You no longer have the threat of disease, unwanted animals. It's a win win. I don't see how it could not be. So, from this side of the fence, as always, we hope that we're alone on it. So, and that everyone on that side of the fence can just wave and support us. So, I'd like to end you with this story. I know I've run a little bit over my time, and I do apologize. But I met a lady a long time ago who told me this story, and it was kind of odd coming from her because of her nature. But two men, one was watching another throw starfish back into the ocean as they washed upon the shore. And every time the tide would come in, a starfish would wash back up, and he would throw it back in. And the man stopped the other, and asked him, "Why do you do this?" And he said, "Because it's the right thing to do." And the other man looked at him puzzled, and he said, "Why? It doesn't matter. You can't save them all." And he said, "Yeah, but the ones I do are grateful." And I think at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. So I thank you for your time, and you have a great day.